in continuing on with this kind of series of looking at a fairly complicated sequence, electropneumatic sequence that needs to be completed, and we're at the point now where we've, I suppose, developed part of the code to complete the system. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at kind of testing and debugging it rather than just trying to hope that we get it right first time. So we looked at a method through OPC communication between Codesys and FluidSim and testing it, and that was quite nice. But there is a lot of kind of downloading additional software packages. There's license agreements and stuff that needs to be done with that. So there is another way where you can use the inbuilt visualization within Codesys, which is kind of pretty much if you're developing a HMI screen, human machine interface screen, you would use this for simulation. So it's quite nice because it's fairly intuitive with what Codesys have available, and it can help, I suppose, fault find some of our code here. Now I've done some videos already on the visualization manager, so do check those out. But basically I'll fly through it pretty quick, but there's more in-depth videos on it. So what I need to do is I need to add in an application, and you'll see I'm going to add in the visualization. I'm going to click add, and what that gives me is it gives me basically a screen that I can put an animation on, so we can simulate some of the code. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to develop some objects, some images, put it in the screen, and then kind of link our code between that screen so we can watch it. Now what I want to do is I want to put in a circuit diagram, the electropneumatic diagram of kind of the system that I'm looking for. So I'm going to pop that in here now. So I'll just copy and paste that in. Now before I copy and paste that in, you actually have to save the image. Okay, so in here there's a toolbox where you have all different controls, really, like here's your lamps, your switches, all different kind of controls and buttons that we can use. But we also got to bring in be able to drag and drop in our actual image. So what we got to do is that we actually got to create an image pool. So first of all you have to take screen print of your circuit diagram and save it. Okay, and then I'll show you how to link it in. Right, so all I did was just take a screen print and save the diagram from FluidSim. This is the only part I really need to look at. So I've just saved that onto my desktop, and then if I hop back into Codesys, I'll be able to import it in. So what I got to do again, application, add an object. What I need to do is an image pool. I need to add that in, and then what I want to do is I want to search for my file. Okay, to double click it, this will pop up, and what we want to do is basically embed it into the project. So embed it into the project and then search for the file. So it's just on my desktop. There it is, open. And what that does is now put into my image pool. So now when I go to yeah, now I have the option for my image pool. There it is, and I can drag and drop that in and make it a bit bigger, just so we can see what's going on. Okay, so I've kind of got a background image which will help explain a couple of things. So we've got the background image, then I want to take in some of my outputs. Okay, so we'll start with the outputs first, and how I do them is just through lamps. Okay, just basically a lamp, drag them in, you can pop that in, and what I do is I just kind of cover the side where the solenoid is, because if B is extending, this is going to light up. So obviously we're not going to see this extending, but we can assume that if that's on, this is going to move forward. Okay, so that's what I do. I tend to, if you want to kind of change some of the properties here, you can just click on it, change some of the properties. I'm going to keep them as yellow for these lights. So I'm going to pop one there. I can just copy and paste the next one here. That's for B to retract. And then we need one for A to extend as well. So I'm just kind of popping them in there. And then remember we have LED, C and D as well. So I'm going to pop in another two. What you could do is you could give these different colors to represent, let's say green, and then let's say, give me another one, let's go blue. But if I also want to kind of know what's going on with them and label them, we can pop in basically a rectangle, pop that down in here. We should be able to, let me see, pop some text into it over here. Go LED B. That's that. So I can just maybe make that box a bit more clear. Copy and paste it. Again, this is just going to act as a label, so I don't need it to change too much of the properties because I'm not going to do too much with that. Okay, so you get the idea. We're going to have these lights that are going to come on when these outputs are activated. So when this is on, I'm going to assume I'm going to have to kind of use a bit of my imagination to assume that's moving forward, right? So how do we link that to the code? Well, what you actually got to do is you got to click on the symbol and then look for where it says variable. So if you double click in here, it will give you access into the application, into your global variable list. Maybe pull that across, and then what was that? That was a extend. Then as we go, just link them all up very easily. We've got, now remember this is B extend, which is K1, because we're doing this indirectly, but indirect control. This is K2, and this is LED D, and this is LED C. So that's my outputs linked up. So now what I want to do is I want to pop in some of my inputs, okay? Now, so I go back to my toolbox, sorry, and I'm going to look at some of my switches, okay? So what I use for my roller switches is I use these dip switches, right? I don't want them to be momentary. I want them to actually be dip switches. Now, what I might do is I might just move everything down. So if I can give myself a bit more room, I'm just going to move everything down so I can get this switch up above it. Just give myself a little bit more room, because this switch is going to represent A0, and the reason we're using the dip switch is because, you know, you got to imagine the cylinder is literally resting on top of it. So I'm going to pop them across. There we go. So we get 4 of them. Pop them across. Okay. So there are my 4 inputs. That'll basically represent where the cylinder is resting. And again, we just link them up the same way that we did before. Look for the variable, link it in. First one's A0, second one is A1, then we've got B0, and then we've got B1. So the last input I need to put in is my start button, okay? And what we're going to do is, so we're going to take in, and we want a push button for the kind of starting sequence. So that's what I've brought over. I've brought over this push button. Now I'm pretty sure this can behave as a toggle or a tap push button. See down here, toggle or tap push button. So if I change the behavior, I want it to be a tap, you know, momentary push button, spring return push button, because that's what I want my start button to be. And I could, if I wanted to, get a text box underneath just to label that up nicely, to call it, you know, start PB. You could give it a different background color, say of green. It only actually gives a wee outline around it of green, very hard to see. And then again, just link that to the variable. Pop in here, this is going to be my start. Okay, lovely. So that is basically the screen built up of what I wanted to do. Inputs and outputs are linked in. Now we got to look at how we'd go about simulating this. Okay. Okay, so when you're simulating in this way through this medium, you need to make sure that when we go to online, that we click the simulation tab. Okay, so this puts us into a virtual PLC, makes us simulate it within it. So when we log in, it just logs in nice and automatically. Okay, so log in, give it just a minute to hook up, and what we should be able to do is we should be able to simulate the code and see it working. So if we press play, it should come in, right? So we've got our code. Now, important just to make sure everything's reset back to 0, which is how it looks good. Nothing has started yet. We're in position 0. Right. So you have to do a little bit of kind of imagination in your head as well. So if both cylinders are retracted, we've got to imagine that essentially, let me see if I can just see everything in here. I've got to imagine that these two are on. Okay, and you'll see when we come over into GVL, you see the two of them are on. So that's what happens at rest. If we press start, both lights will come on and A will start to move forward. Now when you're simulating, it's important to simulate it that as it moves forward, this is going to come off first and then this will come on. And it's important to do it in that order. So this is staying out. So if this is moving forward, it's going to B0 is going to come off first, then this will come on. See, then it starts to move back. So then this should come off and this should come on. This is broken, so it should start coming home. So this should come off, this should go on. This is moving back forward. So come off, come on. Again, continue to move forward like that. And then this should start to come off. Light goes off, and then we're into our next step. So that's how we simulate it correctly, and that is the sequence that we are looking for. So you can see it through the lights and through your imagination just of the cylinder moving forward and back, that it's operating the correct sequence. The good thing is as well, you're in control of the speed there of how you're clicking on and off these inputs, so you can really take your time to look through it. It's just important that if it is moving forward, that this comes off first and then this goes on. If you keep that on, you try and hit this, if you don't do it in the proper order, it can cause problems. So that's just one thing to look out for. But a nice quick simulation, probably not as good as the Fluid Sim one, but pretty decent all the same. And it does get you into seeing how you can do a HMI screen and kind of link in some of the variables and how we do that. Now another useful thing could be if you want to display where that position step number is. So if you want to include that, that could be a really useful thing to watch. So what you could do is basically, I suppose, is there something nicer here I can put in? Hang on once. No, we'll keep it simple. Literally just bring in a rectangle. Okay. We can make this nice and big. Now what I'll do is I'll just have a label underneath it, just to let us know what's going on. So what this is going to do is just going to display our position number. Okay, so we'll just resize that up. Again, you could really get into some of the text properties here, bold it, change its color, whatever you want to do. You can play around with that. But in here, what I want to do is I want to link in basically some properties into it. So if we look at the text, what that should display. Right, so in the text box, what we want to do is we want to look at the text variable, what we're going to display. And we want to link that to our position. Again, we've got to take note of the type and the data type that it is, because that is important. Okay, because in our text, what we've got to say is we've got to use some of these operands, basically these identifiers, and we've got to say this is going to be percentage I that's coming in. So it's going to be reading in an integer. Now what I could do is I could really do with making that a bit bigger. Oh yeah, and see here as well, the text of this element can be used with placeholders. So there's your placeholder name, string, and your floats, your different types that we're using. So percentage I, I'm pretty sure, is the integer. It might actually be percentage D, but we'll test it out. So just to make that a little bit bigger, if we go into font, we can just bring that to be much bigger. I'll actually even go bigger than that, so we can really see it being displayed. Now percentage I think is a placeholder. If you look up the data types online from Codesys, sort of help Codesys, you can see some of the prefix that it needs to be. S for string, so we're looking for integer. We have I, so we'll just check, does that work? It's different for different systems. So let's log in and let's check out, does it start to read in some of the values when we press play. Okay, yeah, so it's starting at 0, so that looks right to me. And we've pressed play. If we press start, see that it's moved to step 10. I forgot to set up my basic. Now it's on step 30, and you'll see if we move this forward, it goes to step 40, 50, 60, and so on. So you can actually display that value there itself. So that's the whole simulation through this visualization, kind of using a HMI screen of what you can do. So it is quick, it's easy to set up, it's good to use. You know, if you don't have the hardware, if you don't have the FluidSim connection, it's a good alternative.